Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to talk about how to write the summary for chapters 5 through 8 of our book, Picking Cotton. So writing the summary is going to be a little bit different than when you wrote it for the previous two articles because this time you're writing it about a specific section of a book. Okay? So here I've got the cover of our book, and then here I've got some notes about how many points each chapter you should write about. Okay? So let's first get our Word document all set up. We're going to change our font type to Calibri or Times New Roman. Font size should be 12. And then make sure everything is double spaced. You're going to put your name, summary, because that's what this is, and then the date, which I think it's the 9th. Okay? And again, as before, you don't need a title or anything like that. Now, remember, up on Cobra, I do have the packet for you if you want to take a look back at the instructions for how to write this. But for the first paragraph, remember it's really short. It can be a sentence. But you have your citation information and you have your thesis. And remember, for the citation, we originally had 4 pieces of information: the author of the title, author of the article, title of the article, title of the source, the title of the newspaper or magazine that it came from, and then the date. Now this is a book, so we're not going to have all 4 of those pieces of citation. We're only going to have 3. So here we're going to have our title. So this is going to be Picking Cotton, our memoir of injustice and redemption. That's the full title. Here are the 3 authors. And then our date is going to be the copyright date. So if you turn in your book to the title page and then flip to the back of that page, that is your information where the copyright is right in the middle and it says 2009. Okay? So that is the information we're going to use. So we'll say in the book. Now, titles of books get italicized. So make sure you go up here and click the P or the I. So Picking Cotton, our memoir of injustice and redemption. Capitalizing all the important words, and then go back up and uncapitalize, by Jennifer Thompson-Canino, Ronald Cotton, and Aaron Trineo. And then in parentheses, we'll put the 2009. Whoops. Okay, so in the book, Picking Cotton by blah, 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 it talks about, so this is our citation. So this is our citation part. So we got the citation all in there, those 3 parts. Now we have to have our thesis, okay? And our thesis is, what is this book about, okay? So we'll say it talks about how a man was wrongfully convicted of a rape when the victim misidentified him and the man's journey to be released from prison. Okay? So here we've got the wrongful conviction, why it happened, and then that's not the only thing that happened in this book. We're also reading about how he gets out of prison. Okay, how he's exonerated. So this part here, the thesis, you can put it in any way you want, but make sure that you talk about how it's a wrongful conviction, he was misidentified, and then how it's also about him getting released as a free man. All right, so that's your first paragraph. Okay? Now, usually with your other 2 summaries for the other 2 articles, you just had one more paragraph to go over the main points in that article. So for this one, I think it might be helpful if you take each of the chapters and make them their own paragraph. So when you're done with the summary, you would have 5 paragraphs. So each of these, and then the one we just wrote. Okay? So when I look back at each of these chapters, I had highlighted and I wrote in the margins in blue ink. So what I did was I took a different color, I took a red pen, and I simply put a little star in the margin where I thought that's a major event that needs to be included in a summary. Okay, there's a lot of detail in here. But remember, a summary is just going over the major points. Okay, and so if we look at chapter 5, remember chapter 5 was Ron's story during the same time that Jennifer's was happened. So Jennifer's took chapters 1 through 4, but for Ron, that same time was only chapter 5. Okay, so we don't need to repeat all of the details about what happened. We just want to include the important ones that we wanted to get from Ron's side of the story. Okay? So remember, you're going to indent, use the tab key. All right? So the first star I have in my book is where he was when this first all happened. Okay, so 3 days after Jennifer was raped, the police show up at Ronald's house looking for him, and they took some shoes and a flashlight. Ronald immediately goes to the police station to clear his name. Okay? And now there are more details involved in this, how he took a neighbor's car, picked up his girlfriend, things like that. But we just want the important parts. Okay? He gives Detective Mike his alibi for where he was that night. And we'll do a colon and we'll list, he was at his brother's house, then a friend's house, then a party, and then it took a couple of hours to take people home, and then he was able to get home himself at 4 a.m. Okay? So that was his alibi. All right? They confronted him with his shoes and the flashlight. He denies knowing who Jennifer or Mary is, and denies raping anyone. Okay? So he is charged with this crime. He is charged and is in jail. He learns from his sister that his alibi is wrong. He got his days mixed up. He was at home that night with family. Okay? So just short and sweet and to the point. All right? We do learn that his cellmate tried to set him up with a deal for a lesser sentence / charge for his own crimes. Okay, that's at the bottom of page 88. All right. Ronald refuses to take a plea deal and is found guilty of whoops of crimes he did not commit. Okay? So we're not going back through all of um the trial and all of that. We're just putting in his side of the story that was the most important for us. Okay? Which is here at the beginning of the paragraph. This is where he was when it all happened. He immediately wanted to go and clear his name. He tried to do that. He gave an alibi, but he got his days mixed up, which happens. If, it's a month or so later after something happens and it was a day that was just like any other normal day for you, some people might not remember exactly everything. And so then we talk about his denial, change of alibi, he wouldn't take a plea deal, and then he was convicted. Okay? So that's chapter 5. Now, chapter 6 is a lot shorter. Okay? Chapter 6, I only had 5 points in chapter 6. Okay? Remember, chapter 6, he's finally going to prison. He has to make sure that he doesn't appear scared to anybody. He gets work in the kitchen, and there's a guy named New York that he has to watch out for. He works out at the gym, and then he thinks he knows who Bobby Poole is, and he thinks this is the guy who did his crime. Okay, so those would be the points that I would talk about in chapter 6. Chapter 7, then, we're looking at how does he get his new trial, because his second trial is chapter 8. Okay, so chapter 7, we want to look at all the important parts of how he got that new trial. So he stands up to New York. We learn about a new guy, Kenny, who he stands up against. We learn about Roger Blackstool, who helps inmates with their cases. He has to confront Kenny again. They fight. It looks like he might get in trouble, but he's not. It's been a year that he's been in there. His lawyers are trying to get him an appeal because the fact that Mary didn't recognize him wasn't included in his trial. And then also the important part that people keep confusing Bobby and him in the kitchen. And then Kenny ends up coming to him saying, hey, look, Bobby confessed to me. And then remember the picture that he got Bobby to take with him. He sends that to his lawyer. He has a lot of anger building. Bobby has moved into his dorm, and he decides in the end he's not going to take justice into his own hands and kill Bobby. Okay, so those would be the major points that I would talk about in chapter 7. Chapter 8, then look at what are the important parts for this second trial. Why we know that he got convicted again, so what led up to that. Okay, so I'm going to put all of this up on Cobra, so you'll see my example. If you have questions, please let me know. If you get a draft done and you want feedback, please go ahead and send that to me. So make sure you get your summary submitted to the Dropbox before 11:59 Sunday night. You guys keep cool, stay safe, and I will talk to you later.